Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR's inaugural race at St. Louis. Absolutely crazy race, sold out crowd, and those fans got their money's worth. A great, absolute, insane duel to finish out this race between Joey Logano and Kyle Busch, and then of course a lot of drama involving the driver of the number one car, Ross the Boss, Ross Chastain. I'll get into that as well. Let's go ahead and get on into it. First off, I want to talk about the finish. I'll talk about Chastain a little bit later on, but I do want to get into the finish of this race. Absolutely insane, incredible finish. A lot of action. An overtime finish nonetheless. Kevin Harvick hit the wall there at the end, throwing a caution, but we were setting up for a fantastic finish either way. Joey Logano and Kyle Busch were dueling it out for a good, I think it was a 13-lap run there, or maybe it was about a 10-lap run. With the caution coming out for Kevin Harvick. Those guys were running everything they had, and that was really cool to see because if you look at just pure talent-wise, and I'm a Kyle Busch fan, so I'm obviously not the biggest fan of Logano, right? But looking at pure talent-wise, those are probably the top two drivers in NASCAR with just pure talent. You could throw a couple of other guys in there, but as far as those two guys, they are extremely talented. Probably the top five drivers in NASCAR, some of the best two drivers probably in NASCAR history, driver talent-wise alone. Joey Logano, a former champion. Kyle Busch, a two-time champion. Those guys are very talented, and for them to see both of those guys running up front and battling it out at the end was absolutely exciting. On the final restart, with 2 laps to go, the overtime restart, Logano pulled the slide job on him. That was cool to see, and then Logano even said in his interview he was expecting to get it right back by Kyle Busch, and nonetheless, Kyle Busch gave it right back to him. Logano said it was a lot of fun in his interview, and Kyle Busch was obviously upset about the situation, but he said that's how it works. And Kyle Busch, I think, is showing a little more positivity in his interviews, or at least not as much negativity, because he's running up front every week. He's running really fast, and I'll mention that when I go through the top 10 as well and talk about that a little bit more. But, of course, Logano getting the win. Logano wins at all the new tracks, doesn't he? He won at the Clash. He won at the Bristol Dirt. He won in St. Louis. God forbid, I hope the more new tracks we have on the schedule, the more Logano is going to start winning. So it seems like every time we go to a new racetrack, Logano turns out to be your winner. So that's certainly interesting. Logano gets all little cool wins. His resume's got some big wins up there, not necessarily big race wins, but like cool wins, like the Clash, St. Louis, first race at St. Louis, just stuff like that on Logano's resume. And like I said, to see those two battling it out is certainly really exciting. Two of the best. Probably the best drivers talent-wise. Those guys are wheelmen, Kyle Busch and Logano. To see those guys battle it out was definitely cool. Unfortunately, Kyle did not get the win, so I was upset about that. He got loose. That's 2 weeks in a row Kyle Busch has got loose on the last lap and lost the race. Just getting everything he could out of the race car, but that's what you have to do to win in the Cup Series. Next, I do want to talk a little bit about the controversy between Ross Chastain. I have to bring it up, right? I mean, it's controversy. It's guys upset with each other. You have to talk about that when you're talking about NASCAR. Chastain... he looked like Brad Keselowski out there today. He looked like he was the bulldozer, and he was pushing the car. He was getting everything he could out of the race car. He did own up to it, but Chastain was, I like Ross Chastain. He's one of the guys that I think, one of the guys I kind of like to watch, week in and week out. I kind of pull for him, especially like when Kyle Busch is out and stuff like that. But, Chastain is showing his aggressive side, but today definitely overdid it a little bit. None of it was on purpose. He even said in his interview, he was upset with himself after all the events. He was like, he even had time to, through the cautions to kind of debrief, get himself back together, and he still did it. He run Chase Elliott, turned Chase Elliott sideways, which took out a couple other guys. I believe Alex Bowman got some damage from that wreck. Bubba Wallace, of course, got caught up in it because he always gets caught up in mess that he really doesn't have much to do with. And then, of course, the Denny Hamlin incident where Ross got up into Denny Hamlin, that was the first incident and put him in the wall. So Ross Chastain, he might have got into a couple other guys that I didn't see. I believe he got into Joey Logano, actually, on one of the restarts. So Ross Chastain obviously upset with himself, but it's like Ross Chastain said, and this is what I like about Ross. He owned it. Ross has paid back guys before in other ways. I go back to Cotto where he kind of, the Dinger run into him, and then, he run back into Allmendinger. That was a fair move. So Chastain dished it out at Coda, and then he unfortunately made a lot of mistakes today, wrecked a couple of guys, ruined a couple of guys' days, and Ross said, he understood the situation. He said he was really upset with himself, understandably, and he said, he basically said, you can't settle that stuff with words. He can't go over there and talk to Denny Hamlin because Denny Hamlin still finished 35th or wherever he finished in the back. He can't go talk to Chase Elliott because Chase Elliott was trying to make come back to the front. Chase Elliott ultimately he didn't even finish in the top 10. He might not even finish in the top 20. I have to go back and look. So Chastain was obviously really upset with himself, and understandably so. He made a lot of mistakes. He mentioned the guys that put him in the car, said this is ridiculous that I did that. So at least he did own it. I will give him credit. He did own up to the mistakes. And I think Ross is a really good driver. I think he'll take a step back, kind of look at it, and say, okay, got to be a little more calm next time, maybe not drive the car too hard. And like I said, the next-gen car is so hard to drive. This is a brand-new racetrack. NASCAR's never been on this flat oval before, so it was interesting to see the way everything played out, but at least Chastain did own up to it. They interviewed Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin kind of stopped out in front of Chastain the entire race, and Denny Hamlin kind of said the same thing. At least he owned up to it, but overall, Denny Hamlin's day was still completely ruined. He finished 35th. And then, of course, Chase Elliott with the payback move with Ross Chastain as well, putting him up into the wall. Now, Ross Chastain did still get all the way up into the top 10. He still finished 8th, wheeled that car back up to the front. But here's the problem I did have with the incident that I just want to mention real quick. I like the way Chase Elliott handled it because Chase Elliott essentially got run over. He got turned around by Ross Chastain. So on the next restart, guess what? Chase Elliott did the exact same thing to Ross Chastain. He put Chastain in the wall. That was it. Chase Elliott let him by after that, all sorts of stuff. That was over. The thing I didn't like about what Denny Hamlin was doing, he wasn't waiting for him, but every time Chastain got in front of him, I think it was 4 times at least that they showed on TV, Denny Hamlin stopped in front and tried to slow down Chastain. Now, either do it one time and show your displeasure, or go ahead and put him in the wall like Chase Elliott did. I don't like the, stringing it out for the entire race when you're 11, 12 laps out of the race, and every time you're not even touching the guy, you're just stopping in front of him. That's the way Denny Hamlin wanted to handle it, but I don't think that's the way it should have been handled. I kind of think Ross maybe should have got rid of Hamlin on that instance because, just continuing to keep pounding constantly was a ridiculous thing, I think, in my opinion, of what Denny Hamlin was doing. I don't think it was kind of what Chase Elliott did to Kevin Harvick last year at Bristol. You have incidents like that. It was an unintentional incident by Ross Chastain. He admitted it was unintentional. It was obviously unintentional. And for Hamlin to just go out there and ride around in front of him for that many laps is just, I think that's ridiculous. I think there might needed to be, and this is coming from somebody who really kind of likes Denny Hamlin, right? He's a Toyota driver. He's my favorite driver's teammate. But I didn't like what I saw today. It didn't look good. I think NASCAR should have said something to Hamlin. I know they did say something like, I think you proved your point. I think NASCAR should have came in maybe a little bit harder and said, NASCAR obviously didn't like it, so if NASCAR doesn't like it either, maybe they should have stepped in and said something like, hey, Hamlin, if you do this again, we're going to have to take action, take you off the racetrack, or farther penalties if warranted. So I was a little disappointed in Denny Hamlin for that, but overall, no wrecked race cars, no big wrecked race cars, or totaled out race cars from the incident. But I think it'll be gone after this week. I think everybody's kind of done their payback. I think it's over. I think they'll all move on going into Sonoma next week. Let's go through the top 10 real quick. I already talked about your winner, Joey Logano, in the 22 car. This is a big momentum boost for him. By the way, Joey Logano is now, I believe, the 4th driver to get multiple wins. So right now there's a 4-way tie for 2 wins this season. That's Joey Logano, Ross Chastain of all guys, Logano, what did I say? William Byron, and Denny Hamlin last week at Charlotte getting his 2nd win of the season. Kyle Busch finishing in 2nd position. Kyle Busch is showing speed every single week. I believe it's been since he got that win at Bristol, the Bristol dirt race that he won. He's been extremely fast every week since then. He was fast at Talladega. I know that's kind of a wild card race. He was really fast at Dover. Looked like he was going to win that race. He was super fast today. Looked like he was going to win today at St. Louis. And Kyle Busch over the last few years has not shown that speed. So for Kyle Busch to be showing that speed again, and for all the Toyota camp to be showing that speed again, which they have not done as much of since 2019 when Kyle Busch won that championship, is certainly good and an improvement. So from a fan, I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. Every week, I'm talking about how Kyle Busch had a chance to win. And it's frustrating at times because he's not getting the win, but at the same time, you have to take a step back and say, okay, it's an improvement on what we've had the last 2 years with Kyle Busch having a major, slump in his career. But I think he's back, and it's about time for him to be back. And hopefully he starts getting some more wins. and getting those W's. But another good day for points as well. We'll have to talk about that. That regular season championship starting to tighten up between Elliott, Chastain, and Kyle Busch for sure. Kurt Busch, another one of the Toyotas in the Toyota camp. Third place, Kurt Busch, once again in the top 5. He's been running very well, very consistent. Another one of those top Toyota drivers. Really doing a good job. Obviously, his teammate Bubba got caught up in some trouble, wasn't able to capitalize. Ryan Blaney, the comeback of the day, right? Ryan Blaney was up front. He was battling for the lead or had a chance to get the lead. I don't know if he got loose, had a tire down, but got into the wall, had some issues, but was able to come back and recover. And then, of course, Eric Almirola. I want to mention Eric Almirola because Eric Almirola is really good at certain racetracks. And those racetracks that he's good at is not the restrictor plates that I'm going to say, or not the super speedways, but the short or the flat racetracks. Like, I think of Martinsville, which he hasn't had too much success at Martinsville, but I really think of New Hampshire. This is probably the closest thing we have to New Hampshire. Eric Almirola got the win there. Eric Almirola runs up front every time we go to New Hampshire. He ran up front today. He didn't lead any laps, but he did run up front today. So when we go to these flat racetracks, definitely look at Eric Almirola to try to get a win in his final season. And I want to watch him going into New Hampshire. And for some reason, that's got me really wanting to see what he does at New Hampshire because he's just so good at these flat racetracks. We'll have to continue to watch him, see what he does. Martin Truex Jr. was leading at the end of the race, but just slowed down, didn't have the speed like Joey Logano or Kyle Busch or even Kurt Busch had, and just kind of fell back. But another one of those Toyotas in the top 10, Eric Jones, another one of those guys, just was up front, was actually was second place on the second to last restart before the overtime finish, fell all the way back to 7th. There was a bit more passing today than I think we saw. We watched the first stage, we were kind of like, we're not going to get any passing. Then the passing certainly began to unfold as the team started to make adjustments and such in the middle way of the race. Ross Chastain, I've already talked plenty about Ross Chastain running over guys today. He was able to get all the way back up to 8th position, so was able to salvage a decent points day. Once again, Chastain's another one of those guys potentially going for that regular season championship. Christopher Bell, I mention him in the top 10 every single week. I say that every single week. This is kind of a worse finish for him, actually, usually in top 5. But he did finish 9th, so a good or decent run today for the number 20 car of Christopher Bell. And then AJ Allmendinger, the Dinger, who actually won the Portland race, the Xfinity race yesterday in Portland, Oregon, out there on the West Coast, was able to come today and salvage a top 10 for that part-time team. Dinger's running part-time, finishing in the top 10. He's won a race last year. He might be a driver that'd be able to get a road course win this season. Definitely want to watch him on the road courses. Next week, we go to a road course, Sonoma, so tune in for that video as well. So like I said, tune in next week for the Sonoma race review. Like and subscribe if you like this video for sure. And that's really all there is to talk about after the first inaugural race at St. Louis. It's exciting. I do hope we go back to St. Louis next year. It should be fun. But tune back in for Sonoma next week. And that's it. That's all there is to talk about. And of course, about Kyle Busch getting loose again on the last lap. Let's get rowdy.